From KGW News, this is Straight Talk with Laurel Porter.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. In just over 7 months, Portland voters have a big decision to make. Who should lead the city as the next mayor? The choice is even more critical as the next mayor will be the first in the city's new form of government. Under the new charter, the mayor will no longer be part of the council, but their role will be largely administrative, serving alongside a new city manager, whom the mayor will hire and the new 12-person council will confirm. The new mayor and administrator will set the tone for the city as it embarks on a new chapter in Portland history. There are several candidates. The 3 leading candidates raising the most campaign funds so far are all current city commissioners. Commissioners Mingus Mapps and Renee Gonzalez have been our guests previously here on Straight Talk, discussing their candidacy. You can see those interviews on KGW's YouTube channel. Now it's Commissioner Carmen Rubio's turn. First, a little bit about Commissioner Rubio. She was elected to City Council in 2020, the first Latina to sit on Portland City Council. Rubio has worked in the mayor's office before. She served as the director of community affairs for former mayor Tom Potter for 3 years and left to join the late Commissioner Nick Fish's office after Potter's final term. Rubio served as a policy advisor and has called Nick Fish a mentor. She left City Hall in 2009 to lead the Latino Network as its executive director. The Portland nonprofit advocates for the local Latino community. She was born and raised in Hillsborough, the granddaughter of immigrants who came to the U.S. as migrant workers. She was the first in her family to graduate from college. In her current role, Commissioner Rubio heads up the Community and Economic Development Service Area, which includes the Portland Housing Bureau, Bureau of Development Services, Prosper Portland, and Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, which oversees the Portland Clean Energy Fund. If elected in November, Rubio would be the 4th woman to serve as Portland's mayor. Welcome to my guest, Portland City Commissioner Carmen Rubio, candidate for Portland Mayor. Welcome back to Straight Talk. So nice to have you here.
Thank you, Laurel. Glad to be here.
As you well know from your current position, Portland faces a lot of challenges, and the mayor's job is a pretty tough one and really a thankless one often. So why do you want to be mayor?
You know, I get that question quite a bit, especially during the times that we're in. And Portland, and I know that Portlanders agree and know this very well, but we're in a very consequential time. We're coming out of a challenging few years with COVID. The landscape is different, and everybody wants to feel safe, and everybody wants to have access to their city. And what we do right now in this next set of years, especially on the cusp of a new government transition coming in, a new change and a new form, will set the tone for the next generation. So all these decisions matter, and I feel quite frankly that I'm the candidate that has the track record for getting things done, and I'm excited to take that work forward into the next set of years.
How do you think the role of mayor is going to be different under this new form of government when the mayor's not on the council anymore?
Yes.
They're in charge of like day-to-day operations, the long-term vision, along with the city administrator. How is that going to work, do you think?
You know, it's a really great question, and it's one that we talk about quite often. I think because we won't have a role on council, my role will really be to elevate the values and the vision for the city of Portland. We have been really focusing on a lot of urgent and short-term needs, rightly so. There's so much going on. There's a lot of crisis in our streets and our communities. And now's the time that we need to look forward and move through these urgent situations, but also at the same time, hold that ideal that we want for Portland for the next generation. We can do both those things at the same time. So the bully pulpit is going to be critically important during this time, as is maintaining really strong relationships and the ability to work across differences with the new city council. So those are important traits to have in an ex-mayor.
And why do you think you're the best qualified candidate?
Because I have a track record of rolling up my sleeves, sitting down at the table on high-stakes issues with people from different sectors, different perspectives, even very, very different from my own, and hammering out a way through intractable issues. And that is what we're going to need in the next set of years, particularly as our new government is storming and norming and figuring out its culture and setting its direction. More than ever, we need people that know how to work with people constructively, productively, and also how to align around shared resources and common ground. And also, you know, when there is disagreement, to sit down at the table and figure it out. That's what Portlanders deserve and voters deserve from their elected officials, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Well, let's talk about some of the crises that are affecting the city. We have the homeless housing crisis, we have public safety and crime, behavioral health, including drug addiction, and a lot of people would also say the climate crisis is part of the bigger global crisis. If you're elected mayor, what would be your number one priority?
My number one priority, hands down, would be the crisis on our streets. It would be housing and homelessness, because for me, housing, it's what drew me to run for the first time. It's what inspired me to work for Commissioner Nick Fish, who also had a deep passion for housing. It's a personal issue for me, and I think I've mentioned before here and in other places why housing is it's a human right, and it all starts with people feeling stable and accessing human services and basic needs. And so for me, that would be a key priority to making sure that we have a system in place to move people through and actually get into stable housing long term, and that we have the housing units available to meet everyone's need that needs one.
Well, housing is the number one priority for the governor, and the legislature passed her $376 million package. You are the head of the Housing Bureau. What have you done so far that you're most proud of as far as housing and trying to get housing production done, and how would you carry that forward as mayor, because construction has really slowed down? We used to be called the Crane City, and you don't see that anymore. And applications for permits are way down. So what do you do as mayor about that?
I have so much to say about those things, but in terms of what I'm most proud of, we've done a lot of work in permitting, we've done a lot of work in other areas, but I am most proud of the work that we have done in housing. I was assigned the Housing Bureau not when I first got elected. I actually was only assigned about a year and a half ago. And in that short amount of time, we have done everything we can. We have turned over every stone and activated every lever that we have as a city in our role to work collaboratively with other jurisdictional partners to catalyze housing development. And just a couple of things that I'm super proud of, like in the list of things that we've done, I moved forward a housing regulatory reform package that takes out unnecessary regulation and also makes development more affordable as they move through the process with the city, which is necessary to get more projects up and going in this really challenging time where not a lot of cranes are in the air, as you said. The second thing I'm super proud about is our work with the mayor's office, where we looked at incentivizing developers to convert buildings into housing in our downtown core. This presents a tremendous opportunity for us to revitalize our downtown and bring back a different kind of a vibrancy that can really change the tone in an amazing way for the next generation in the central city of Portland. So in a time when downtowns are struggling across the nation, this is an opportunity of a generation.
When it comes to homelessness, we declared a homeless emergency almost 10 years ago in 2015 under then Mayor Charlie Hales, and since then the homeless population has tripled, I think, to about 11,000. The city and county did just recently reveal a new plan to overhaul the response to homelessness, and with a goal of cutting the homeless population in half by 2026. Why do you think you're the best mayoral candidate to try to make that happen?
Well, as a mayor, you absolutely need the abilities, the characteristics that's required to work collaboratively with other jurisdictional leaders. I believe Portlanders are tired of their leaders fighting in public. I believe that they need us to work together. That's what we were elected to do, and that's what we need to do to get through these problems together. And so I have relationships that are transparent and trusted, and also truth-telling to all our jurisdictional partners. We need to have the ability to move through these issues with candor, and also making some hard decisions together. And so I feel like I'm best suited because I have a practice of doing that throughout my whole career, and I've exemplified that several times in the last 3 years as a commissioner for the city of Portland.
Commissioner Gonzalez told our reporter Blair Best that if he were mayor, he would continue the practice that he started as head of the Fire Bureau of not handing out tents and tarps to people who are homeless. What would you do?
So, I just recently heard about that. I haven't heard the entirety of his reasoning, but what I can say is that when we're talking about ending homelessness and real solutions, tent bans is not solving a broken system. We need to solve the broken system. The tent bans are just one aspect of it. So I am going to focus on actual real solutions, not temporary things that will make us feel better for maybe a minute, but doesn't actually solve the problem. And that starts with creating a strong foundation of shared alignment around the state. Everybody cares about this issue in their jurisdiction, in their neighborhood, in their county, around the state. Working closely hand in glove with the mayor or with the governor around their goals for more housing, but also our local jurisdictional partners too, pushing them when they need to be pushed, but at the same time staying in our role and elevating the need across the jurisdiction.
So when you talk about other jurisdictions, I think you're talking about the county, and Gonzalez also said that he would stop funding the Joint Office of Homeless Services. I think the city gives them $35 to $40 million now, saying that we're really not getting the bang for the buck from the city, and that the county has plenty of money that they're not even spending. Would you continue funding the Joint Office? I need to see some changes out of our collaboration together. We've expressed those needs, and I know that the commissioner there's leadership on the commission right now that also wants change. So we're actively working in real time through those discussions. But I will say this. What is not acceptable to me and will not acceptable to Portlanders is that we halt or stop services of any kind and then there's stagnation. We have to be moving forward. We can get through these issues together. We can work together, solve them and move forward on them. But also it is time to call the question on certain things, and that's something that I'm ready to do. I don't think just unilateral decisions this way or that way are merited unless we have explored actual dialogue together and that we've actually moved forward on an issue together. Well, let's dig into crime, because if you're mayor, you're going to be head of public safety and also in charge of hiring the new police chief. Two of your fellow commissioners, Gonzalez and Mapps, have sort of positioned themselves as the law and order Democrats. You have been committed to the social safety net. You have a background of racial justice with the Latino network. What can people expect from a Mayor Rubio when it comes to public safety and keeping people safe?
You can expect from me that I will first and foremost keep the safety and livability of our community at the center of what we do. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their neighborhoods. Everyone deserves to have access to their public spaces. And that is our role as a local municipality to ensure that those things happen. I also think that it's important to bring our values into how we make that happen. And we do need a strong community and public safety system in this city. That is one of our roles and our charges as elected people in Portland. And we can do that. We can also do it through the lens of Portland values. We can have those things and also bring into it compassion and accountability.
Chief Bob Day was appointed last fall, and he is set to stay on until June of 25, until the new mayor would hire a new police chief. What would you be looking for in a new police chief?
I have to first praise Bob Day, Chief Day. He is exactly the leader that we need right now in the police bureau, and I deeply appreciate his approach to the work. He has a lot of the qualities that I would want to see in the next chief. He's transparent. He knows how to sit down with folks across difference and actually talk through issues and leaning in to learn. Those are really important qualities of a leader, and not unlike a mayor. And maybe that's why I'm so drawn to his style. But also he cares about safety, and he cares about making sure that what we're doing is moving towards building a system that's going to outlast any one of us that's in office, but it's built for the generational work ahead.
So you'd be looking for someone like Chief Day. Would you try to convince him to stay on?
I would absolutely try and convince him to stay.
Well, we're going to have Chief Day on another week or two, so I'll be sure to ask him that when he's here on Straight Talk. The Portland Police Association has been talking about getting a measure on the November ballot that would ask voters to weaken what was passed in 2020, the civilian-run Police Oversight Board. The new proposed ballot measure would remove the board's power to discipline officers and give that to the police chief. If you were mayor, would you support that move? It has to get 41,000 signatures still to even get on the ballot.
I believe that, I will first preface my comments by saying that, that measure passed with 82% of the vote. That is significant demand for some changes. And so I believe that we did our best to present a balanced proposal and vote on that just recently that really takes into consideration, the voters' intent and really making sure that that is pulled through into this proposal and changes. And at the same time, the ability for the new commission to really set up the procedures and administrative rules that they need to do to actually implement the work. So it has not yet been long enough for us to determine if we need a change. I believe that we need to wait and see what this looks like on the ground and how it's implemented before we know what to change. Just like Measure 110.
You've been a big supporter, and we'll talk about that in a second. You've been a big supporter of Portland Street Response, the first response team that focuses on helping people who are homeless or in behavioral health crisis by sending an unarmed team rather than police. It's been really successful, except that it's had financial difficulties. It doesn't have a stable, dedicated funding source.
That's right.
As mayor, what would you propose for Portland Street Response?
Well, two things. First, we need a leadership commitment from the top. I don't know that that has ever been something that has that the small new program has experienced. And then second, we need to fund it to be fully implementable. It needs to be full service. It needs to be accessible and responsive to all corners of the city. And it's never quite had its footing in that respect, and it needs the opportunity to show what it's got and also work in alignment with all our responder systems and also be the connective tissue to the safety net services. I'm really excited when I think about the changes that are happening at different levels of government. Things are coming, there's an awareness and a recognition that we need to come into alignment around these things. And I believe that Portland Street Response is a critical part of that story, and we need to fund it full tilt.
Let's talk about Measure 110. You were a pretty big supporter originally of Measure 110, which decriminalized possession of small amounts of hard drugs like fentanyl. Recently, you pushed the legislature to make some changes, which they have, recriminalizing it with the idea that people would hopefully not go to jail. They'd get probation, treatment, and then a deflection program. Some people might look at your change in position and say it was a flip-flop. Why did you change your mind?
I don't see it as a flip-flop. I see it as leadership learning and adjusting along the way. And as leaders, we need to be able to be flexible and be receptive to things when they need to be adjusted. And yes, I think everyone, I along with everyone, was a supporter of Measure 110 because it appeals to a lot of our Portland values. We want people, we want to address, some of these issues, the substance abuse issues, but we also want safety in our streets. We also want to do it with compassion. These are the things that Portlanders care about. So I don't think anybody at the time anticipated, myself included, the landscape around, the availability of the new drugs on the streets.
And the lack of treatment available.
Exactly, and that was the second point. And also a system that really wasn't there. Those are huge learnings. Those are things that none of us really could account for in the beginning. And so it's critical that we take those lessons learned and apply them and recalibrate. And I really applaud the legislature for taking on this issue. It's a really challenging one to take on, but nevertheless, I think that we're poised to move in a good direction. The other thing I want to applaud them for is for the $25 million, that elevating the focus of treatment and funding it and ensuring that there's a system that's going to be taken seriously and built so that people can have access to the system in real and meaningful ways. So,
Commissioner, it's time for us to take a break, but another crisis that Portland's facing, part of a global crisis, is a climate emergency. How will the commissioner tackle that if she's mayor? We're back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter, and we are talking with Portland City Commissioner Carmen Rubio, also a candidate for Portland Mayor. Commissioner, welcome once again to Straight Talk.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about the climate emergency. And you oversee the Portland Clean Energy Fund with a plan to invest millions of dollars to reduce carbon emissions. And that money, in case folks don't know, comes from a tax, a retail tax, 1% tax on the large companies in the city. It has brought in more money than anybody could have imagined. I think it's over $1 billion over the next 5 years. How are you using that money to fight the climate crisis?
So I think that nobody anticipated quite such a increased amount coming in, but it definitely has taught us things about how consumers are purchasing more and more increasingly online. And so we're seeing this, the trend in that way across the country, really. And in terms of what it means for these projects through PSEF, it gives us an opportunity. It's not one that was expected, but there's the portfolio of regular capacity building and project funding that the fund was designed to do. But we're also now looking at bigger move projects. And so just recently, just last year, the City Council passed the recommendations from the committee to sort of change the way that we roll out the funding so that we have more opportunity to be flexible and now include different kinds of partnerships that aren't just limited to community-based organizations, although that is the root in the core of the fund's mission, but also to expand it to include more partnerships in some cases private sector, with the public sectors, the city and local municipalities, including schools. So it really provides us an opportunity to do larger scale investments that really address GHG gases and really make an impact in the community.
And you do have a spending plan.
There is it is a community investment plan, a climate investment plan that was passed by City Council, adopted by City Council, and recommended by the PSEF committee. So we are following that. We're not even in our first, have completed our first cycle of that plan, but we are on track to make some really good investments.
Well, a lot of people look at all that money you have in the coffers, and then they look at Preschool for All and all the money that they have in the county, and they look at Metro's tax, the supportive housing services tax, and they say, they're awash in money, and we don't see a lot of things happening. So there's talk about people wanting to cap taxes or recalibrate or even get them back on the ballot. What do you think?
Well, I will say first that I completely understand how Portlanders feel. I understand about, in a time when we're seeing multiple crises intersecting even, and then amid, some of the worst climate disasters that we've ever seen in our generation, all these things feel very overwhelming a lot. And we are not seeing the traction that we expected to see, So I appreciate that sentiment, and I hear that, and I see that as well. What makes the fund different than Preschool for All or these other taxes is that it is not funding the actual Portlander. It is funding corporations and businesses that pay into the tax and using that fund specifically for these climate funds. So in that way, it is not. I understand how it feels. It feels like a lot, and it is. It's true. But in this one way, it is very distinct, and that's why it's more important for us to remember that we need to be thinking how to use this fund strategically to get the most investment that we can and return for our investment in the community projects we see or the larger scale projects or partnerships with government and private sector.
And you pulled back on the idea you floated about using interest from the money to help fund Portland Street Response, right? Just quick answer on that.
I did. It was an idea that I put on the table, and I wanted to do that because I think that's my job. It's my job to be putting ideas on the table and exploring them. Some ideas will be great, some will not be great, and some ideas actually turn into better things. So stay tuned on that one.
All right, we'll stay tuned. I want to give you about a minute to just tell us, you've described yourself as an introvert, a no drama commissioner, not the loudest person on the council, but you said people might underestimate you. What do you want in these last moments to let people know about you?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. I want voters and all Portlanders to know that I really love this city, and I love it so much that I ran for office, even though it is not, something I'm not someone that is the loudest person in the room. But when I say something, I mean it. And when I say things, people listen. And I know how to roll up my sleeve and get the job done. And I am the candidate I am the member of City Council and the only candidate in this race that has a demonstrated strong record of outcomes for what I'm doing. And I would take that heart and dedication and get it done attitude and bring that to the city when we need it most. Not only that, I have a strong emphasis on building relationships and also being clear about the direction that we need to go in as a city. So
I have to jump in here.
Sure.
We're almost out of
Okay.
time, Commissioner. Thank you so much, because I want to show your website. If you'd like to find out more about Commissioner Rubio, you can check out her website, carmenforportland.com. And I hope you'll join me next week when my guests are 3 women making history. For the first time, all 3 sheriffs in the Tri-County area are women. Our conversation about their journeys to the top, challenges they face, and advice for women.